Hi, I'm Ray. I was diagnosed with a disease called lupus, and on this channel I serve high vibration with a side of wellness, a dash of shea butter, and plenty of natural beauty. I share my personal lupus journey through a holistic lens, from nutrition to emotional roller coasters, and I'm hoping my journey makes yours a little easier. Forgive me, this is my first time, obviously, so I'm doing a little looking on my paper. So yes, pre-diagnosis. So before being diagnosed, I was pretty healthy. I didn't have much of any health concerns that I can think of. Always relatively active, nothing consistent, but I was often hanging out with friends, did some traveling, and was really just living my life in my that was my life. And I had just ended a pre-relationship with someone that I really liked, and it was my first really like. It didn't end in a way that the way that I wanted it to, in a comfortable way, and that shook me a bit. I'm mentioning this because I feel like that may have contributed to this. Not blaming anything on this person, but lupus, according to my research, is known to be sparked. Flares are known to be sparked by stressful situations, and that was most definitely a stressful situation for me. So there was that, and then I was also transitioning jobs. So I had a job that I liked, good coworkers that I'm still friends with to this day. Shout out to y'all if y'all ever watch this. And yeah, I switched jobs, and as I got to the new job, I was working at the front desk of a hotel, and I noticed that my digits were swollen. A couple fingers were swollen, the knobs on my fingers, these little bones on my fingers, the bulbs were swollen. And then after a while, my wrist felt a little swollen, and then it was my knee, and I had never been swollen in those places before. That was weird, after not hitting it or anything. So it was odd. Probably like a couple weeks went by, it still was swollen, those areas, and I decided I need to go see a doctor. So I went to the doctor, and he also thought it was strange. This is my doctor I've been seeing for a while, and he did some blood work, and the blood work came back. I went to see him again to get the blood work reviewed, and he looked at it, and he was kind of solemn look on his face. Kind of irritated me because he was kind of a solemn guy. He was a Russian doctor, not very much emotion, but typically we had a little repartee, you know, a little back and forth conversation. But this time he didn't say much when he got the blood work back. And so I asked him, what does the blood work say? And he said, I want you to go see a rheumatologist. And I said, why? Is everything okay? He's like, you just need to see the rheumatologist, and then he's going to share some things with you, and then you'll come back to me. And this was a union health insurance, so there was a process for everything, and some things you couldn't do, and some things you could do, and it was all dependent on, you know, the rules and the money, etc. Super grateful for the insurance. They definitely hooked me up, but there were some things that like irritated me about how the process went. Anyway, I went to the rheumatologist, and he looked at the blood work, and I believe he did more blood work, if I'm not mistaken, on the spot. And he came back and he said, you have a disease called lupus. Now, I had heard of lupus before. I was not at all familiar with it, what it entailed, what it meant. I just knew it was chronic, and that I would probably have it for the rest of my natural life. And as a 20-something, carefree, young, black chocolate girl, I was very upset about that. I was crying uncontrollably, not at first, but I got there. And thank God my mom was with me, because it was a very difficult thing to hear and experience, and I wouldn't want to have to do it alone. If anyone out there is watching this and you do get diagnosed with the disease, if you think it's something that you might have, please take someone with you. That was such a blessing for me, to have my mom there. And it was a very, very tough time. The doctor was great. He let me stay in that room and bawl as long as I needed to. And then he came back in and we just talked. And he told me, more about the disease. I got to ask some questions with whatever brain cells I could formulate at that time. And he prescribed some medication. I don't even want to mention medication on the channel because I don't even know if I can, if I should, if I'm going to get in trouble. But he prescribed a very common medication for me initially. And I was on that for a while. And it didn't seem to, I didn't seem to have very much change. The swelling did go down some, actually. But it was still kind of there, lurking around. So that was the diagnosis. And afterward, I was sad, but dealing with it. I was not in a place where I understood what was going on. No one in my family had lupus that I knew of. No one in my family had any autoimmune disease that I knew of. And I grew up with both parents. Both of my parents relatively healthy at my age. Nothing to speak of that I knew of. And all these thoughts were racing through my mind. My mom had me when she was older. My dad was also older. There were all these things that I used to like to eat. I was a pastry fanatic. I did consume a lot of pastries. I was like, was it the sugar that did this? I was searching for an explanation. I had none. So I couldn't really figure it out. But little by little, I just let it go. I let it go and I let it God. And just decided to deal with it as best I could. So maybe a couple months went by after I got the diagnosis and the medication. And then I noticed that something else weird started to happen. I started to lose taste. Very weird. I started to feel very slow, lethargic, and I was walking to the train to go to work. I live in the city, and it was so hard for me. There's a little hill that I go up to go to work. And I was out of breath. I think I started to feel a little nauseous. Started to lean over on a light pole. I was a very dedicated employee, everybody. I was really, really dedicated. I was trying to go to work at all costs. And I had been feeling kind of ill for the last few days. My mom was aware of it. I spoke to her on the phone when I was going to work that day. And she was like, come back, turn around, do not go to work. They don't pay you for being good. That's her favorite thing to say. And so I did that. I think I called work on the way back home. And I went back and laid down. And from there, it was kind of a downward spiral. I started to get more and more lethargic. Activity of my limbs was very limited. It was hard for me to lift my head off the pillow. My mom, before it got to the height, she took me to Checkers. At that point, I was still eating that food. I loved their banana milkshakes. That was one of my favorite things ever. And she was like, you know what? Your taste buds are off. Let's take you to Checkers. You always love this. It's going to be great. It'll probably cheer you up a little bit. I got to Checkers. I had the milkshake. It tasted like cardboard icy. It was like weird. I couldn't taste anything. So that's when we knew something was super duper off. Called the doctor. Went to the doctor, actually, my general doctor, the one that sent me to the rheumatologist, and told him everything. And he was saying, I see this a lot. You are most likely just upset, and you are feeling feelings and emotions that are tied to your diagnosis. And I said, I don't think that's the case. So he prescribed me a therapist. And I thought, I'm not going to this therapist. He's bugging. So I went back home, and after a while, it was continuing to decline, and I couldn't feed myself. My mom had to help feed me at one point. And we had church family come over and pray. So grateful for them. They prayed and prayed and prayed. And then after a while, this video is getting long. After a while, I said, you know what? I'm going to the hospital. So my sister was there, thank God. She took me to the hospital, and they rushed me to the emergency room. They were doing all these tests. They thought I had myasthenia gravis. Did she have, I think sarcoidosis came up, which I found out one of my sisters had. Get into that different time. All these different things. Thank God for their diligence, because eventually they found out it was something called Guillain-Barré syndrome. So I had that. Turns out I also had a flare at the same time. So I ended up being in the hospital with a flare and Guillain-Barré for 3 months. I was paralyzed from the neck down, could not move. Eventually, I could not talk. They gave me a trach and a feeding tube and a catheter. I had all the things. Very, very emotional time in my life. And I had to do physical therapy. Physical therapy was intense. I went to NYU Hospital, and they were incredible. I'm so grateful for them. And I learned how to walk again. I had a lot of family support. My mom was there with me often. I know she was a wreck, but I'm happy that she was able to keep it together for me. And it was just an amazing journey. I hope that this helps somebody, that some of the warning signs I shared were helpful. Some of the feelings that I shared can help validate yours if that is something that you feel like you need. I look forward to bringing you more about my journey. There's so much to share, so much to tell in terms of nutrition, emotions, relationships, family relationships, romantic relationships, work, balance, mindfulness, everything. So please stay tuned. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to coming back and sharing more with you. Bye.